Generations in Conversation. Welcome to the first episode of the OK Learn English podcast. Hey everyone, welcome back to Generations in Conversation. This is it, the first episode. Can you believe it? In this first episode, we'll be sharing stories, thoughts, and connections with all of you. Honestly, I never thought we'd get here. When I started this podcast, it was just me in my tiny living room with a cheap mic, talking into the void and hoping someone, anyone, would listen. And now, here we are, together. Before we dive into today's episode, I just want to take a moment to thank you. Yes, you. Whether you've been listening from the very first episode or you just stumbled upon this show recently, you're part of this journey. You're why I'm here, why I've kept going even on days when I felt stuck or uninspired. Every comment, message, share, it means the world to me. So, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Now let's get into today's topic. I've been thinking a lot about what we could talk about for such a special episode. Do we go big and flashy? Bring on a high-profile guest? Or maybe do something completely out of the box? But then I realized this podcast has always been about one thing: connection. Real, human connection. So today, I want to slow things down and just talk about us, about family, about those little threads that tie us all together through generations. The power of small moments. Have you ever stopped to think about how much of who we are comes from the people before us? Not just in the big ways like traditions or family histories, but in the small, everyday moments. For example, growing up, my grandma was the queen of apple pies. And I'm not just saying that because she was my grandma. It was a fact. Every holiday, every special occasion, there it was. Her famous apple pie with a perfectly golden crust and a filling that made your taste buds dance. The secret? Nutmeg. Just a tiny pinch. She'd always say, "A pinch, darling. Not more, not less. Too much, and you ruin the balance." I didn't appreciate it much as a kid. I mean, it was just pie, right? But as I got older and started baking myself, I realized it wasn't just about the nutmeg. It was about how she made it. With care, with patience, with love. Now, every time I bake, I hear her voice in my head, reminding me to find the balance, not just in recipes, but in life. What about you? Is there a recipe, a family dish, or maybe even a smell that instantly takes you back to childhood? Maybe it's your mom's lasagna or your dad's barbecue sauce. Whatever it is, I bet it's more than just food. It's a memory, a connection. Words that stick with us. It's not just the food though, is it? It's the words, the sayings, the little nuggets of wisdom that stick with us long after we've grown up. My dad was full of these. One of his favorites was, "Don't chase success, chase kindness. Success will follow." As a teenager, I didn't get it. I thought success was all about hard work, ambition, and, let's be honest, being better than everyone else. But as I've gotten older, I see what he meant. Kindness isn't just about being nice to others. It's about how you approach the world. When you lead with kindness, opportunities have a way of finding you. People want to work with you, be around you, help you. It's like this ripple effect, and it all starts with how you treat others. What about you? What's a piece of advice someone gave you that didn't make sense at first, but later became a guiding principle? I'd love to hear it. Seriously, send me a message or comment. I'm always curious about the wisdom we carry from one generation to the next. Generations in Conversation. Now, here's something I find fascinating. We're all part of this ongoing conversation between generations. Think about it. The things your parents taught you, they probably learned from their parents. And one day, you'll pass those things down to someone else, even if it's just a friend or a younger colleague. But it's not just about the past. It's also about the present. We're not just recipients of tradition. We're active participants. We get to choose what we carry forward and what we leave behind. Maybe your family had a habit or belief that didn't sit right with you. You can choose to let it go. On the flip side, maybe there's something new you've learned that you want to add to the mix. That's the beauty of it. It's always evolving. For me, I've started adding gratitude rituals to my day, something my family never really did. Every morning, I write down 3 things I'm grateful for. It's simple, but it's helped me start the day with a clearer, more positive mindset. Maybe one day, if I have kids, it'll become something I pass down. What about you? Is there something you've started doing that feels like it could become part of your family's story? The legacy of connection. Here's the thing. We don't always realize the impact we have on others. Sometimes it's the smallest actions that leave the biggest marks. I remember a story my mom told me about her dad. He wasn't the type to say, "I love you," or show affection in obvious ways. But every morning before school, he'd polish her shoes. He never talked about it. He just did it. It was his way of saying, "I care about you. I want you to start the day looking your best." It's a small thing, right? Polishing shoes. But for my mom, it meant the world. It's something she still talks about years later. So, what's your version of polished shoes? What's the small thing you do or someone does for you that speaks volumes? A thank you to you. Before we wrap up, I just want to say this. Thank you for being part of this journey, for listening, for sharing your stories, for letting me share mine. This podcast started as a little idea, a spark, and it's grown into something I couldn't have imagined. But more than that, it's become a community, and that's all thanks to you. So here's to the first episodes. Here's to the memories we carry, the stories we share, and the connections we build. And here's to the next episode, because we're just getting started. All right, friends, that's it for today. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with someone you think might need to hear it. And as always, take care, be kind, and keep the conversation going.